All right, I wanted to mention, by the way, just before I go into the break as well, there's a breaking news story. Major taxi scam uncovered as 180 non-EU nationals obtained licences despite having no legal status in Ireland. So, they have no legal status in Ireland, so I'm assuming they're asylum seekers, if they've no legal status in the country. Gardaí have uncovered evidence of a major scam in which 180 non-EU nationals obtained taxi licence using fraudulent PSV applications despite having no legal status in the country. And the Gardaí National Immigration Bureau searched several residential addresses across Dublin where suspected false documentation, including SPSV applications, these are the public service applications, are being produced as part of a massive immigration fraud. There's a surprise. There's something we didn't know already. Woohoo! There's loads of non-nationals, non-EU nationals driving taxis in Ireland who are not even legal citizens of the country or have legal status in this country. We didn't even know that. Sure we didn't. We needed a newspaper to tell us that today, or the Immigration Bureau. Sure, everybody knew. The dogs in the streets know that, for God's sake. Anyway, the day of action was part of the Operation Vantage, a 4-year-long inquiry by the Gardaí National Immigration Bureau, which has so far uncovered widespread immigration fraud, which is generating millions for organised crime gangs. There you go. There's a story that nobody knew about until the guards came up with this, and it took them 4 years to figure it all out. But sure, we were talking about it on the air years ago, and nobody cared. Amongst those identified in the operation were 2 ISIS supporters and a number of sex offenders, all of whom were subsequently deported. What sort of country are we? I mean, I mentioned at the start of the show, the government are not listening to the Irish people. Is Ireland an easy target for fraud? Do you believe that we're an easy target, a soft touch when it comes to non-EU citizens? There's nothing we can do about EU citizens. They're entitled to move around, free moving to people and all that kind of carry on. Are we a soft touch for people to wander in out of any country in the world and sure nobody can do anything about it? They arrive at Dublin airport, they'll arrive anywhere, they've no visa, no reason to be here, and say, I'm coming from a war-torn country, I'm claiming asylum. Go to direct provision, spend a few years there because they'll constantly, be told, I'm sorry you can't stay, but they'll appeal it and appeal it and appeal it. And not only that, they'll get a taxi licence to drive a taxi, driving your daughter, my son, around this city with people we don't even know. Sex offenders, supporters of ISIS, driving taxis in this country. Are we surprised? Hell, we're not.
The Niall Boylan Show, Ireland's most listened to late-night talk show with Woodland Motor Company.
All right, now, getting back to the story. I'm not horrified reading this story because I'm not even surprised by it, right? Paul Williams has this in the paper, the Irish News there today, and I'm looking at it. The heading says, major taxi scam uncovered as 180 non-EU nationals obtained licences despite having no legal status in Ireland. And they're not finished the investigation yet. They expect it to be a lot more. Some of them are ISIS supporters. There's also people in here who have been are in direct provision, who are not even Irish citizens or have no legal status in this country. Others, as part of this investigation as well, I'm reading here too, that it was launched, it's called Operation Vantage, and it's also smashed a major international criminal conspiracy which organised at least 2,000 fake registry office marriages in this country between non-EU males and non-Irish EU females who were paid to participate in these sham nuptials. Amongst those identified in the operation driving taxis in this country are ISIS supporters and a number of sex offenders, all of whom are now being subsequently deported. I'm glad to hear that. And it says here it is suspected that the scam has helped thousands of non-EU nationals, mostly from the Indian subcontinent, India, Pakistan and Afghanistan, to gain EU residency rights in order to bypass UK domestic immigration laws in the run-up to Brexit. What can I say? There is no surprise there, is there really? Let me go to Dermot, who's a taxi driver. Dermot, you're on Classic Kids. How you doing, Dermot?
Good evening to you.
As we speak, they've already found out 180. They believe there's a lot more than this. Are driving around with no legal status in this country at all.
And what do you want me to say to you? We have been banging on about this month in, month out, year in, year out for the last couple of years now. And my brother Padraig, I hope he's listening.
Oh, he's jumping up and down with joy, yeah, as we speak, yeah.
Absolutely jumping down up and down with joy, because, like everything else, this is just another symptom of what is going to happen in this country. The taxi business is just one part of it. Europe, oh sweet Jesus, Europe is one serious mess, and it's getting out of hand. Am I surprised? Not one iota. Didn't miss a heartbeat when I read it, for the very simple reason that I knew it was going on. When you're out on the streets and your finger is on the pulse and you see what's going on. I do see these guys. I do, as I said to my other half, I do regularly pull up at traffic lights.
Here's a question for you, right? Here's a question. I'm reading between the lines here. 180 non-EU nationals obtain taxi license using fraudulent PSV applications, right? And they have no legal status in this country. So I can only assume they're in direct provision, right? So they have, because they've no legal status in Ireland, right? Out of the 180, all right, 2 of the drivers have been deported. 2. Now, surely if 180 non-EU nationals who are waiting for legal status in this country commit an act of fraud, which it is an act of fraud, they should all be deported.
Correct. But who have we got in charge of our country? I really don't want to go down this road of who's in charge of our country, how depressed I am, because when I look at the way this country has been governed and the lack of interest in fair play for the citizens, the Irish citizens of this country against the non-nationals that come in here, I'll put it to you very briefly. I had a bit of a bang there since in the last couple of weeks. I'm a tax-paying man. I've worked all my life. I've never taken anything from the state. I go to the hospital, I get a bill for €100. I go to see a specialist, I have to pay €200. I go for an operation, I have to pay €1,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just, I'm not going to go off on a tangent and whatever, but it just pisses my fucking arse off. What is the point of working? What is the point of making an honest living that when you do hit, your back hits the wall, health-wise or otherwise, you get bills coming through the fucking door? And it's a freebie for the rest, you know, for the non-nationals and the. And
I'm looking here. It says here. Chief Superintendent Dave Dowling, who's part of this operation or head of this operation from the Garda National Bureau of Investigation, says it's only at the early stages, right? And so this is only the early stages, and we've already discovered 2,000 people married illegally. We've already discovered 180 taxi drivers who had no legal status. He says, and when we continue, as we trawl through more, we will hopefully reveal the involvement of possibly many more individuals.
Yeah, the country's in big trouble, Niall, and let's make no mistake about it. It is in very, very serious trouble going down the line. We are going out. The thing about it is, I lived in the UK in the 80s, and I saw the lack of multicultural society, the bad multicultural society there. I saw the whole thing in London back in over 35 years ago, and it's now turned full circle in Ireland, Dublin particularly, but certainly in Ireland. And it's just... Are we a soft touch?
Are we a soft touch?
Oh, it's fucking major. No, it's not that we're a soft touch. It's a case of... the first question you'd ask about the taxi thing is, it's not so much these rogue guys that try to get in and the whole lot. What the hell were the people that are issuing the licenses, the guards, that do... like when I went when I go for my license, you have to wait a couple of weeks for the guards to do a complete check to see your background and the whole lot of any issues.
But they're using other people's names who have already got status in this country. You know?
But they have different faces. They're different people. You can't go and get a taxi license and ask me, can I use
I'm going to say
ID?
something, and I don't want this, and this will be construed as being racist when I say it either way, no matter what way. What I'm going to say is, culturally, we are different as people from India, people from Nigeria, people from Afghanistan. We recognise each other and we understand. I mean, when we look at people's facial expressions or people's faces, it's quite easy for us to differentiate between people. But when we look at people from different cultures, sometimes to us, as, Western people, they look the same. To us.
Correct.
Okay, now I'm not saying they do look the same, but to us they do, because culturally we're different. And I'm not going to blame, the individual who looks at somebody's photograph and looks at the guy and goes, I'm not going to doubt the guy, because if I do, I might be accused of something here. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The same way as we know, for example, that the National Bureau of Investigation in the past have caught people from other countries who are going in and out of post offices, using other people's children to get children's allowance, using fake ID, but they sometimes can't tell because culturally we're different and we look different culturally.
Well, I suppose I'm only defending this subject. This is a huge, wide subject regarding Ireland, Europe. The whole situation. I was watching a very, very interesting thing on BBC last night about Hungary. Hungary are on the front line to stop this whole carry-on of letting the whole world just fucking walk into Europe. And it's extremely, in fairness to the Hungarians, they are standing on the ground on this, and they've closed their borders, and they're very, very strict on it. And they want to get a block of MEPs who are against mass immigration into Europe together and form a party, and they basically want to protect Europe from being overtaken by Muslims. And
there's no indication that all these individuals are Muslims. And clearly some are, because it mentions here that 2 of them are ISIS supporters. But stay there for a second, because I want to go to James. James, you're on Classic Kids. How you doing, James?
Hi, Noel. How's things?
James, I'm not surprised by this story, but here it is. It's official. The Gardaí have been working on this for 4 years and have uncovered that 180 people with no legal status in the country are driving taxis.
No, there's been people talking about this for the last 2-3 years, and every time they bring it up, they're shut down because they call it racist, xenophobe, bigot, any name under the sun. There's no politician that has the stones to talk about this or bring it up, and there's no radio presenter that would really do it, except yourself, and I give you credit for that. The Phoenix Park, the guards ran an operation at Phoenix Park, and out of 127 taxi drivers, they found 1 in 4 were fraudulent. That was just before Christmas. Now, around Christmas, there was a Pakistani taxi driver arrested for raping a woman around Ballsbridge. You might remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's talking about open borders. Just today alone, there was another rape in the Independent by an Angolan man. Now, these are coming through the direct provision system. That happened today. The same thing I read today was that a Romanian gang that was skimming cards were arrested. A kingpin was arrested in the Midlands. This is just today. This is happening every day. If you're like an anorak about crimes and about reading the news, like I am, because I'm a taxi driver, you're gonna start seeing a pattern develop. And because we've opened borders and no one to speak up against it, nobody at all, we have serious problems coming down the line. We have no concept or idea who is actually in this country. When people are refused a position, refused asylum in this country, this is a crazy thing. They are asked to self-deport. That's exactly what they're asking.
Because we don't have the resources to chase people around the country.
In 1 year, in 2017, we deported 160 people. Now, in the Irish Times there about a year ago, a conservative estimate of how many illegal nationals are in Ireland, they put that at 30,000 people that are in Ireland. Now, we have
these are people who have been refused legal status in this country and are illegally living here.
As you know, if you're part of the European Union, you have people that are allowed to come in. And that's just
I'm assuming the majority of these, because it does mention that in a lot of these cases they're from the Indian subcontinent, and they say a lot of them are coming over here because of Brexit in the UK, and they're obviously the fear that they're not going to get status in the UK, that they're coming from Belfast, so they're coming in through Belfast and down, so they're not coming in through the ports as such.
Well, this is happening for many years now, and the acceleration is unbelievable. Even at Christmas, you had that asylum seeker castrate the man at Christmas. You remember this? These crimes are getting more frequent and more extreme. And I mean, nobody's speaking up about it, and we've completely porous borders. Nobody's talking about it. We don't deport criminals, and there's no political will to deport them. 95% of the public want these criminals deported. Who wouldn't? They're not from Ireland, and they're not from the EU. We have a massive problem about deporting people from the EU, but I mean, they have the free movement to come back in anyway. But we can actually, if there's political will there, we can forcefully deport these people from our country, and there's no political will to do it, because anytime anyone steps out, you have the goons from People Before Profit and all the migrant NGOs fighting against it, saying, oh no, what about their rights, what about this, they're married here or whatever, and you'll have all the do-gooders lining up to defend these people.
I mean, as part of I mentioned too, as part of this operation, it's called Operation Vantage, they've also uncovered 2,000 fake registry marriage marriages between EU males and non-Irish EU females.
Well, that again, if you're deprived in asylum in Ireland, that was the next step for people to come in. If you're from Pakistan, you want to stay here, you pay your 10 grand to an Eastern European, and you get married. And the guards, in fairness, they're clamping down on the last couple of years, and they're annulling the marriages and stuff, you know. But that's irrelevant. They're still not deporting people.
But 2,000 seems like a lot. I mean, in a short period of time. Sorry, Dermot, you're trying to say something.
Unfortunately, I totally agree with everything that man is just after saying there. But unfortunately, it's the horse is bolted now. There's no point closing the fucking gate now. The horse is gone. It's too late. This is a mess that was, as I said, 30 years ago. I saw with my own eyes in the UK what was going on over there. And I used to come home to Ireland. Ireland was a clean country, to be, for want of a better word. It was an innocent country. This country is fucking destroyed now. And it's gone down the toilet, and there's no coming back.
Okay, well, stay there, both of you, because I don't have too much time with this, and we will talk about it tomorrow again at 12 o'clock. But Terry, you're on Classic Hits. How are you doing, Terry?
Hello, Niall. How are you keeping?
It's a concerning story, Terry, isn't it?
The whole thing is, Niall, an absolute load of cobblers, because the warnings were all there. The signs were there years ago, and we saw all these people coming in the door and giving them licenses and giving them everything. Although we gave them some
well, these individuals weren't given licenses. They obtained them fraudulently.
Niall, I was standing one evening with a friend of mine in Camden Street. We got out of both their cars. He was a taxi driver, I was a taxi driver. I am a taxi driver. Anyway, we were standing outside the cars having a cigarette. This old Skoda pulled up. Now, don't get me wrong. A black guy got out, went in the door. 10 seconds later, a different guy came out, differently dressed, got out of the car and drove off.
So two people, foreign nationals, from what you believe, obviously from the way you described it, were sharing a taxi license.
You know what I mean? And the Gardaí are powerless. The NTA was doing.
But they're not. But the Gardaí aren't powerless, because the Gardaí have a right to stop a car and ask somebody to see their PSV license.
No, if that was the case,
but hang on, Niall. Let me just say this to you, right? The guards have the power to stop taxis and the whole lot. But you go into Dublin city centre on a Friday or Saturday night driving your taxi, and you will see you're better off seeing fucking an alien than seeing a guard in the city centre on a Saturday night.
Well, James did say there was a checkpoint set up recently.
Then you drive out towards Bray or out towards Dundrum, out into the suburbs or out towards Swords, and you'll see fucking 4 cars and 3 bikes and about 20 Gardaí stopping, all chatting away and stopping cars, checking them for tax and insurance. Instead, in the city centre, stopping every fucking taxi. I'd have no issue being stopped 20 times a night. I'd have no issue if I was stopped 20 times a night and the guards were checking my paperwork, because then I'd say to myself, they're doing something about this fucking issue.
No, can I
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, sorry, Terry. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask you something? Like the carriage office and the taxi office need to answer why that they give some sort of amnesty to foreign nationals.
Well, it's not a carriage office anymore. It's called the Transport Authority now, isn't it?
Well, the Transport Authority. You have to understand, the taxi licence is an incredibly hard thing to get. The actual test is a really hard thing. How on earth have these people, now the legitimate ones that have passed this, how have they actually got the test? You know, and I mean, what's the future for Dublin? Like, are we really in a situation where when my kids grow up, they're going to be getting a taxi around? The industry is completely destroyed, and the government has been completely reckless. That they have criminals driving cabs. It's probably one of those jobs that you need people strictly vetted for, because it's such a dangerous. You're going to be taking drunk people home, drunk women home, and yet we've opened it up to the third world, where the cultures don't even mix. They don't even view women in some of these countries as human beings. And we've opened it up.
Well, I mean, just to mention as well, by the way, the investigation, it says here, the investigation also now raises serious questions surrounding the integrity of the system, which is designed to ensure strict standards by which passengers are transported safely by fully qualified drivers. In some of the cases, they said the individuals didn't even know how to drive a taxi.
Well,
I mean, this is quite a shocking story.
And there are professional guards or professional people vetting these people, going through all the steps they have to go through in order to get their license. There have to be questions asked as who is their brown envelopes being passed under the fucking table there.
You cannot vet people from a different country. How do you know what the history is of someone from Pakistan? They don't
But
have
quite
the same
simply, then, if you cannot vet somebody, you do not give them a fucking
You're
license.
100%
They've also said they've also established that a UK-based gang which created a complex network of over 1,200 bogus Irish registered companies that were using it to gain EU residency rights for bogus asylum seekers to come through Ireland.
Absolutely.
Well,
They're
geez.
laughing at us. They're laughing at us.
The direct
Niall,
direct provision centres that have popped up in Wicklow, Rooski, Lismore and Waterford the other night, they're siphoning people through the direct provision centres. They know that these people aren't genuine asylum seekers. I think only 20% of them are ever accepted, and the other people who are not accepted, who are fraudulent, are never sent home. What's the point in having the system in the first place?
All right, listen, lads, I am going to continue that conversation again tomorrow from 12 o'clock, all right? And I appreciate you coming on the air, all right? And I really do appreciate it.